US President Donald Trump could visit China as early as next month, with diplomatic sources confirming discussions are currently underway. Both Donald Trump and Chinese President Xi Jinping see a visit as a diplomatic win, but initial talks focus on Trump heading to Beijing first. Now, communication between Washington and Beijing is tougher now than under Biden as the US undergoes major political shifts. However, groundwork is in place. Trump and Xi spoke before Trump's return, and their officials have engaged since. But if the meeting happens in April, what exactly could that highlight? A Trump-Xi summit is being discussed, possibly in April. Trump favors hosting Xi at Mar-a-Lago, but Beijing wants a formal settling. Now, if Trump visits after China's two sessions political gathering, it would be seen as a key victory for Xi. Sources have suggested that April is the earliest possible date. Donald Trump, aiming for a China trip within his first 100 days back into the Oval Office, sees this visit as a strategic development. Now, tensions are still looming large. Trump recently doubled tariffs on Chinese goods, triggering Beijing's retaliation as well. A US trade investigation into China wraps up in April, possibly leading to more of the action. Still, Donald Trump sees himself as a deal maker and has in fact also hinted at a possible trade deal between the two nations. He highlighted that his strong ties with Xi, recalling his 2017 visit to Beijing, which was followed by a trade war. Diplomatic protocol suggests that it's now America's turn to send a leader to China. Sources have also suggested that Trump's visit could happen in April or May, with signs of his China strategy emerging soon. For now, Donald Trump's team is focused on Ukraine, but once that issue is settled, all attention could return back to China. A senior Chinese delegation recently visited Washington exploring trade negotiations, yet the US officials remain uncertain about Washington's evolving China policy. Trade restrictions, Taiwan and the South China Sea continue to fuel tensions. If Donald Trump makes the trip, will it ease the relations or spark another geopolitical showdown? We'll discuss that further. My colleague Sandeep Punithan, in fact, is joining us live on the broadcast to take the discussions forward. Sandeep, it's a big development. If this meeting, in fact, happens, what exactly are we expecting to come out from the meeting of these two leaders?
Well, Sakshi, it's a big development indeed, but it's been long in the pipeline. In fact, if you recall, in January, the Trump team had invited President Xi Jinping to witness his inauguration in Washington, D.C. Of course, the Chinese didn't take that invitation up because they were preparing for the bigger event, which would be a Trump-Xi Jinping summit meeting. And that's what the Chinese seem to be pushing at, because what we have seen in the last couple of months, Sakshi, is the fact that the Chinese have been increasingly assertive, a little more confident about their economy. They've seen the worst of COVID. They've emerged from a housing crisis, a real estate crisis that threatened to bring down the Chinese economy. They've survived all of that. There's a lot of confidence now that they'll be able to handle this ongoing trade war with the United States. It is the largest trade relationship in the world. Both China and the US have a trade of almost $500 billion. That's nearly $500 billion, which is, of course, a majority of it is, in favor of China, as in like the United States imports more goods from China than it exports to China. So there is a huge trade deficit, which is making the United States very anxious. And that's the reason why Trump has imposed these 20% tariffs on China. Now, there's one way of looking at that as that he's had enough of this trade deficit. He wants to reduce that trade deficit, as he has with several other countries like Canada, Mexico, and even India. But with China, the trade deficit, the tariffs that he's imposed on China have a different meaning. These are bargaining chips that he wants to use ahead of this very important summit meeting with President Xi Jinping. And he just confirmed that to a reporter yesterday when he was asked that, is there going to be a meeting between you and President Xi Jinping? And Trump replied that, yes, of course, we are looking at that. We're looking at the possibility. I have a very good relationship with President Xi Jinping. So if you ask me what they're going to discuss, it's all going to be about trade, how to bring that deficit down, how to fix the economy, because Trump's number one priority, Sakshi, is to reduce the trade deficit with China make the US economy very strong. And this comes at a time when China, as I mentioned, is far more aggressive, it is more confident, it is more assertive. And that is something that Trump wants to contain. And this is possibly what we're going to be seeing in this summit meeting. It would be, if you ask me, it would be a meeting of equals. Now, China is a threat to the United States' number one position, the number one economy in the world, the number one military power in the world. They are a threat to the United States' number one position in a way that the Soviet Union never was, because the Soviet Union was a military power, but China is a military power, it's a growing military power, and it's already an economic powerhouse. Sakshi.
Absolutely. Sandeep, thank you so much for joining us with all of those crucial details. We'll continue to track this particular development on that meeting happening between the two leaders very, very closely.